I'm a fan of fantasy, so I listen to Easy and Alan on their Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. During the show, you can live chat with Easy and Alan at lennymelnickfantasysports.com. Rumour has it, Lenny only swings one way, with Launch Angle. Now here's Easy and Chris Allen.
And welcome to another Wednesday night at 10 o'clock on the Lenny Melnick FantasySports.com, the Legend Sports Network. I'm with my co-host again, Mr. Chris Allen, and I looked it up. We got another week before we have our 1-year anniversary. So,
one more week.
I mean, shit can happen between now and then. So, you know what? We can't really celebrate yet. But I think January the 18th of last year was our first, I'm sure no one heard of it, me and you, but it was our first show a year ago. And I'm sure, I don't even know if you paid attention. Do you know what we even talked about? I did look it all up. Maybe I have to listen to it, but
I don't remember.
The title was What We Wish We Knew. Remember, we talked about if we were going to start, if this is our first time ever playing fantasy, what have we learned over the last so many years that if we were just starting out, we would want to talk about? And that was our first show a year ago that, and I couldn't tell you one thing we talked about. I'm sure we talked about, podcasts and shows and things to study and things you would know.
That's right. I do remember that.
Yeah. Our very first show was about what we wish we knew the first year we played fantasy that we now know. So, yeah. So, like I said, I'm not ready to celebrate yet. We got another week before, we could, anything could happen. Like I said, we might not make it. So we'll go. No, we've done pretty good. We missed a few weeks here and there, but we pretty much, I've always heard on podcast or these type shows that, a lot of them start, but to get to a year is, it doesn't seem like a lot to do roughly 45 or 50 shows, but, we've stuck it out. Have fun. Like I said, we went about halfway or so, and Lenny found out I was doing something, and offered us to come on his network, and we obviously got some followers at that point, and we're on YouTube now. We're on Lenny's network. We're on iTunes or whatever that's called. We're actually multiple places that we don't even talk about anymore. We take it for granted. All of our 46 listeners.
We got every single one of them.
Right. So. And hopefully there's a few out in the chat room. It was a little slow today. I was in the chat room on and off most of the day. So we had a good time. So yeah, we're at that time of the season too. Like last year was our first show. So we were, doing a lot of real important, broadcasting. Now we're, we're able to bull crap a little bit and make some stuff up. That's always fun too. So, we welcome all of you out there. Yeah. Andrew said we didn't come on until August. I guess I didn't pay attention to how long it took before we jumped on. So we went quite a ways, I guess, but just me and you before.
I didn't know it really went that long. Yeah. I guess so.
Well, we went from January to August on our own. And, I think we went maybe 4, 5, 6 months before we figured out the YouTube thing, and we got that going. That's me, though. I like the fact that we did this for a while on our own to figure it out. I'm not like we're experts now, but I think we're much more comfortable now than we might have been early on. You had done it a few times, I think, other places, but yeah, for me, it was my first, and now I've done multiple shows. The round table. I don't think you've listened. You probably haven't even listened to our round. The round tables are hysterical. I have a blast.
I've listened to a couple. I mean, it goes off the rails quick, though.
Oh, yes, but that's the fun part. Last night we were talking top 10 cereals. Where else do you have that kind of entertainment?
That is, I can get behind that.
We did go with Lucky Charms. I know I have some regulars out there, so I don't want them to go, I heard that last night, but we did go with Lucky Charms as the number one cereal. So because of its versatility, so it was kind of fun. Yeah. Jordan Allen, congratulations. He's congratulating, I guess, too, that we've made it a year. I listened to his show today. He was talking, football and stuff. And again, that's the other thing. The Lenny Melnick when we got on in August, there was just a handful of shows, and now there are a handful of shows every day. So and a lot more to come. I mean, I've heard some big numbers, so there's a lot more people, coming, and a lot more people broadcasting. But last night was a good. Would have liked to have you on a little bit. At least last night we talked a lot about trading. What we like in fantasy, what we don't like. Me and Lenny have two different sides of trading. He's a pretty real specific. Both managers or owners of teams need to justify the trade before he thinks they should go through, and that type. And me and you have talked. I'm the other way, and I think you're more little towards mine, where trading is open. Let's make deals. Let's do things. And if we think there's something major, then let a commissioner solve it after the fact. But we had a good conversation. We talked about an hour about fantasy trading, so it was kind of fun. So tonight we'll be talking a lot about just coaching changes, things like that. Again, anybody who's new to the show, we can go off the rails here too. We can talk a little bit about anything. We'll because it's just general sports, fun talk. So we have a good time. Chris, other than that, how are you doing this week?
I've been doing well.
Right.
Getting back into the swing of things.
I know. It was the first Monday I had to work in like a month. It seemed like it's like, oh my God, 5-day weeks. Who invented that crap?
Yeah.
It's just not even right. And I guess it could be worse. It could be worse.
The schedule.
Yeah, it could be worse. We could be government, employees where, where we have to go to work. That's the worst, where you have to go to work and still not get paid. That might be the worst. So I'm out there. Anybody who's listening to us, you know what? Sorry, that would be the worst. Going to work and not getting paid might be worse than going to work or not going to work or not getting paid. I mean, I would not enjoy that whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
So we will get into a few things, but real quick, I'm going to throw a name out there, and maybe I know, Bernice Sandler.
Bernice Sandler.
Yep, ring a bell.
No.
I have to tell you, I had to look it up a little bit and study a little bit myself. Bernice Sandler passed away a few days ago at the age 90, and she was the founder and the godmother, or the mother of Title IX. She was the big person that realized in college sports specifically, but in all sports, that maybe something needed to be changed. I have a daughter, that was pretty athletic and did sports. And I think you have a daughter or two. One. Okay. I'm a Title IX person. Especially in public schools and colleges that are government, funded and all that. I agree. A woman on the golf team deserves just as much respect as, a guy on the basketball team. I'm just kind of a believer in that. A little bit, but she did pass away a few days ago. It just made me, it came up in another thing I was listening to, and it caused me to pause and read a little bit about her. And, pretty.
That's interesting. I had no idea.
I would recommend anyone out there, Google her. She's got a Wikipedia and a couple other things, and you'll read some articles about her passing, and 90 years old. And, so Bernice Sandler, rest in peace, and thanks for your work, and women out there, and men. I think everyone benefits, when things become better, period. When lives are changed and things are better for people. We kind of brought that up last night, talking about college players getting paid. And a couple people were like, well, yeah, but the football players should get paid more than the swimmers and all that. And I'm a believer that you can't do that. You kind of have to look at them all the same. A student is a student is a student. And just because in my opinion, just because one sport's more popular or brings more money in really shouldn't matter. They all should be somewhat treated equal. And so that like I said, just wanted to start out that way. I like to always throw out some other sports story or something that maybe we don't hear as often. But here, like I said, I'll try to bring something up like that makes you think a little bit, appreciate something.
Absolutely.
Quickly, college championship game. Did you get all wrapped up in that? And You know,
I watched it. I mean, especially most of the players that were making some of the highlight reels, they're not coming out. They're not declaring for the NFL. But still, I mean, from a Devy aspect, I think there are quite a few players that stuck out, and I was very happy to see Clemson win it. But actually, interestingly enough, so the quarterback from Clemson, the dude that they were saying looks like Sunshine from Remember the Titans,
right?
Which is actually pretty accurate.
I just thought he was I thought he was one of the Hanson boys.
It also looked like that, but he graduated from my wife's hometown, Cartersville, Georgia.
Cartersville, Georgia.
Yeah,
right.
He graduated from Cartersville High School, and that's where my wife's from. Like her grandparents, they actually still live there. They still live there in the town or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like we were sitting there watching it, and
and there's somebody there that you can, there's a connection. Right? May not know them or vice versa, but I think that's cool.
I mean, my wife. I mean, she doesn't really care about college football. I mean, she barely watches NFL. But then they mentioned Cartersville. We're like, oh well, I'll be damned. So
now, that being said, when the game was out, I did something I'd never done, and I did it by mistake. I turned on Fox Sports Network to. I really didn't know the schedule, and sometimes I'll just turn that on to see if there's a Cavaliers game or something. And there obviously wasn't. Most good sports realize, hey, we're not going to program or have any games because there's a big game already on. But Fox had one of their college. I'm sure he's a pretty popular guy. I ended up following him on Twitter that night. He's got a couple million followers, but he's their college football guy. Well, they obviously didn't have the rights to show the game, but they had him and another guy on a couch watching the game, and he was, different than an analyst, meaning he was getting up and drawing on the board. He was, it was very, very entertaining. So I did turn the volume off on the game. Luckily, I streamed the game, and the game was a little bit ahead, so I was able to pause it to get the two to match up. So he was watching exactly when I was watching.
Gotcha.
And man, I found it. I mean, it was just so, because they didn't have any juice in the game, I mean, it was Fox and the game was on ESPN, they were able to talk about everything and in a very fun way. But he cringed every time in that fourth quarter when they let that kid run the football. They're like, yes, because his point was the game's out of hand. They're up 3 scores. There's 10 minutes to go. Why do you let him run the ball where he could get hurt and be out all next season? A major injury at this time is enough that you don't have him next year for most of the season. And I kind of agreed with that too. I mean, it's, why do you do that? And, and you could see a few of the plays, and that's what he said. Yes, there was a few where the kid brought the ball down and ran on his own, but there were a few that you could tell were drawn up plays, for this young freshman kid who, could be the future of them, at least for the next couple of years. And I was probably disappointed the game wasn't, I don't like either team. So, but probably in the back of my head, yeah, right. It's easy to hate both of those. Matter of fact, it's easy to hate all the ACC and all of the SEC teams when I'm just too much of a Big Ten guy. I can't, whatever. So, but I was rooting more for a good game. And obviously we didn't get that. So I at least got to watch this guy watch the game, and I found that entertaining. It was pretty fun. So now I come at this as a fantasy thing. A lot of the people in this game that had a big outcome in this game are young. They're not even, none of these players, a lot of the receivers are freshmen, some of the quarterbacks freshmen, the other, the Alabama guy's a sophomore. So I don't know. Did I miss anything? I'm sure there's a lineman or two, that technically don't count as fantasy things, but might help, a team or running back here or there. But did I miss anybody last night by not paying attention to something that might be fantasy relevant next year?
For next year?
Yeah.
Not that I can think of offhand. I thought most of
I couldn't either. I really
returning the next year.
Yeah. As a fan of fantasy, I just looked at that game. To me, there wasn't anyone there really that.
That was more for if you're into Devy prospects and things of that nature.
Right. And even dynasty type players are not right. You're not going to be able to draft them yet, right? Most dynasty leagues, you don't draft players until they're NFL eligible, right?
Yeah.
There are some those dev leagues though where you draft even college kids, right? I mean, they're already in college.
Yep.
What is the youngest you can draft somebody in those type of leagues? Any age?
Yeah, as far as I know, you can get them as early as their freshman year in college.
Okay, but so college would be college, though they at least have to be in college. You can't draft a high school kid.
Yeah, I've heard of some wild ones that go into that can go into high school. I've never played in any of those, but from a Devy aspect, the earliest I've heard of is redshirt freshman type.
Now, Jordan Allen out in the chat room is saying that we should have a college fantasy league. That would be tough. I did DFS a few years ago when DFS. A while before they took college off. I know they added it back a little in some of their things this year. But college DFS is a little crazy because there's so many teams and there's so many rare opponents that, some quarterback at some small school can get 500 yards. I mean, it's and I was amazed at how often someone in DFS college would have that guy. You're like, how did he know that, the kid from, and I kept using Acorn State last night, but for another reference, but how did this guy know that the quarterback from, Acorn State tonight was going to get, 622 yards, passing, I'm not saying the NFL is more predictable, but I think college football is by far a lot harder to predict because there's not that much play against each other. It's hard to even rate players in my opinion.
I would go the opposite direction because I think that much of the talent, this is just me thinking out loud, is that I think most of the talent, you can identify some of the weaker spots on both defense and offense and see where most of the, prime talent that you'd want to bet money on would be at. Because, it's not like in the NFL where most of the players are great and then you're really just paying for the top tier players. I think some schools only have maybe a few guys that you would really want to invest in, then you can probably look at the matchups and then see where.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is what you just said, matchups. To me, it's hard to, you think this team is worse or better, but because they haven't played the same, I'm trying to think how to word it. In the NFL, most teams are playing each other. So, so-and-so didn't play so-and-so, but they played so-and-so who did play so-and-so. Where in college, somebody played, Michigan plays Acorn State. No one else in the Big Ten did. So you can't really judge, how well the Buckeyes would now do against Acorn State because, they're not playing them or they didn't play. I don't know. It just seems like it would be harder for me because there isn't that connection, as far as competition or whatever. But
you could make adjustments based off of if those types of teams have played each other, but I still think the raw talent is fairly easy to measure. So if there is a severe mismatch between a wide receiver and a quarterback, running back and linebackers and all that, I think that'd be fairly easy to exploit.
But I could be wrong, and I'm sure someone in the chat room will get me. I want to say there's roughly 168 NCAA football teams. Division One. Right. So my point is, even that would be hard. How do you know unless you're, and again, I know there are people that are into it enough to know that, hey, the guy at Acorn State is getting ready to go against, I don't know, something, Valley State that no one's heard of, and their, safeties suck, and this guy is better than probably an Acorn State should have, and he's going to go off,
You'd probably start with something like, team stats or something like that. Then I know Vegas they still do projections, so that might be
a place to go.
Yeah, that'd probably be at least a decent place to start. You can look at individual team totals and kind of go from there and see where Vegas thinks like most of the points might be scored, dig into the team stats, and then kind of go from there.
Right, and you don't hear that often. I think we've talked about it in the past a little bit, and I still don't do it a lot. Vegas numbers, that's probably, we've talked about, I think back to early shows, things that you wish you knew or things that in fantasy pretty easily, if you just have a question or you want to, you're not sure, a lot of times the Vegas numbers will give you the answers.
They'll point you in the right direction.
And if I'm not mistaken, a majority of the books had this game almost dead on. I don't think they had the score that different. I mean, I don't think they thought it was going to be a blowout, but I think the score in their heads, I think a lot of them was around that 60-point thing, which is about what it turned out to be. And I think a couple bookies or books that I saw had it like dead on. It's like, it again, a little bit scary sometimes how now again, I think there was a little bit of I don't know. Do you think they really thought, well, if it's a close game, it's going to be 60, and if it's a blowout, it's going to be 60? I mean, are they that good that they can sit there and figure it that way?
They can at times, but I thought for some reason that they had Alabama favored on that game. If I'm not,
I'm not saying who they had favored or not. I'm just saying that they had the total right. They had the game total at. I've seen it anywhere between 58 and 62, roughly, depending on where you go. I mean, right. and then the score comes out, damn near dead on. I mean, they. Mm-hmm. But again, and I agree, I think they were based that on a close game Alabama wins, and instead it's a Clemson blowout and they still bang the 60 points.
Yeah.
That's my point. Now, do they come up with that number and got lucky, or did they come up with that number knowing either way we got this? I mean, it's scary. I mean, so.
Yeah, they probably run through a number of simulations in order to see what the probability would be of how you could get to that game total. And then given the two teams and their offensive power, yeah, I could see how they could get to that point. But yeah, that was just, I did not expect that. I definitely didn't expect that.
I didn't either. I mean, it's just one of those rare things. Yeah. Malpal saying 130 D1 schools.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm thinking basketball. I think there's more basketball D1 than there is football. In my head, I've always had that 160-ish, and maybe that's for NCAA basketball. Or maybe I'm just, have a totally wrong number in my head.
That'd be a surprise to me.
Because, I mean, I think there are more schools that just don't have football at all. Or you have like UD who has football, but their football isn't Division I,
Right.
So, that might be it. So, I mean, it's just amazing that they get it. And like I said, I really didn't think that fantasy played into it much. I'm sure there were some, people gamble on it, just like anything else. We talked, not me and you, but I brought up in one of the chat rooms or something. I know it's college, and college seems to have the Monday night to themselves, and that's when they want their championships. But wouldn't it have been nice to have just had this game on Sunday night? You'd had the playoff games for the NFL. They were all done by 7:30. Wouldn't it have been nice just at 8:30 to turn on and just watch it all that night? You think it's too much?
Yeah, it'd be too much.
Come on, you watch football. I know you're watching when there's a regular Sunday for the NFL. I know you're watching the 8:30 game too. I mean,
sure, but then that's what I'm saying. It's too much.
Okay, but my problem is on Mondays there's no college playoff championship bowl parties that I know of. I'm sure there's a few bars where there's people hanging out and a few buddies drinking beer, but it's not close to what a Super Bowl party is. And I don't think there'd be as many Super Bowl parties if that game was on a Monday night. If the Super Bowl was on Monday night, Super Bowl parties would, I'm not saying all go away, but it wouldn't be what it is.
Sure. But I don't think that college, I mean, while people are still interested in it, it still is not even close to, I don't think the ratings are even close to what the NFL is at.
Especially worldwide. The Super Bowl draws a worldwide. I don't think the college championship draws any type of a world viewership. I mean, again, I'm sure every country has the game and whatever, but it's not the Super Bowl. But still, as far as, I don't know, it's even back to the NCAA tournament, they always had the championship game is on a Monday night. The Baseball World Series is a little different because it's a best out of 3, but it's always in the middle of the week. And same thing. I don't know, college, they just don't like to compete, or they just like the idea of knowing tonight it's our night.
Yeah, I think it's more of, they get the Monday night game, weekends, or at least Sundays are for the NFL. So it's just that they try and keep everything separated. I just can't see how, from a marketing standpoint, any of that changes, because there's just so much wrapped into having all-day marketing campaigns for the NCAA championship games,
right?
All-day campaigns for the primetime NFL games. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It'd be very hard to switch.
I don't know. I just know Monday night I struggled. I made it through the game, but as soon as the game was over, I went to bed. Well, when the Super Bowl's over, even though I got to work on Monday, but when the Super Bowl's over, I stay up and watch all the news stuff and the interviews.
The Super Bowl should be a national holiday anyway.
Well,
everybody's watching it.
No, the problem is it's a Sunday. The problem is with the Super Bowl is I don't want to go to work the next day. It's the next day that should be a holiday.
That's what I'm saying. The day after the Super Bowl, that Monday should be a holiday.
I'm really convinced that the day after the Super Bowl, we should change everything. The day after the Super Bowl should be voting day. So we should Monday should be the day off. We should have the Super Bowl on Sunday. And on Monday, everyone gets up around noon after the Super Bowl party hangover and go vote. I think voting would be a lot more popular if we took that Monday off. And kids can't remember. My kids, I at least got them in the voting thing, but they always go, oh, I didn't know voting's coming up. But if they knew it was the Monday after the Super Bowl, everyone would remember that. It's like, oh, yeah, Super Bowl's today and tomorrow I have to go vote. And talk about, something to talk about in the middle of the Super Bowl, party, is who you're going to vote for.
Last thing of course, that's the one thing. Get your buddies and family together, throw some alcohol in the mix and start talking politics while I'm watching football. Absolutely not.
All right. You probably got me. They're saying in the chat room there's roughly somewhere between 345 and 355 Division I basketball teams.
Goodness gracious, man.
Holy Lord. That's pretty amazing, to be real honest. Whew. All right. I have one more, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but I saw something yesterday that I struggled with believing, but at the same time, it's not like, it's on the internet. It's got to be true. It was, and it's only, unfortunately, it was only Big Ten numbers, and the most updated numbers were 2015, and it had to do with the sports or athletic programs for the Big Ten schools and how they did financially.
Okay.
Tell me if this just doesn't seem. First of all, let me just ask you, in the Big Ten, what team, and again, it's not that I did very little research other than, this is based on 2015 revenue. Mm-hmm. What Big Ten team do you think had the biggest deficit as far as, made the most money from their athletic programs?
That made the most money, or you said deficit?
I didn't know. Okay, a surplus, and there are a few that had a deficit. And I even found that amazing.
That made the most money.
Yep, the most money, and the number one surplus was over $13 million.
Oh, I would assume that it's us.
The number one deficit was $3,200,000. So. That's $15 million difference between the team that made the most money off their athletic program and the one that lost over $3 million.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Ohio State wasn't up towards the top.
Ohio State was number one. We made in 2015, the revenue from athletics was $167 million. Their expenses were $154 million. So again, they had a surplus of over $13 million. The University of Iowa, their revenue was almost $106 million. Unfortunately, it cost them almost $109 million. Of their expenses. Yeah, what the hell's going on in Iowa? How do you lose money? I guess weird things could happen. Maybe they built a stadium that year and that's part of the number. You know what I'm saying? It would be hard to say. But the problem I had, that wasn't the big problem I had. The problem I had is the number 2 surplus team. The difference is huge. The number 2 team, and who would you guess in the Big Ten, the number 2 surplus, meaning they made the second most amount of money?
Next big in the Big Ten? Team up north.
Huh?
Team up north.
No. That in 2015, University of Wisconsin, they surplused over $5 million.
Really?
So, I mean, I found that I was looking at something else and then those numbers popped up. The Buckeyes by far spent the most money, $167 million. The number 2 spending team was the team up north. They spent just a little over $150 million. So we spent $17 million more than they did. I don't know. I found that pretty amazing. I don't know. I mean, is that what these big two? I mean, if we had to make a list today, and I think I've looked at weird lists, and I think there's stat things out there that. Because this is all sports, this isn't just football and basketball. I mean, this is all their athletic programs. Mm-hmm. And I've always seen, the Buckeyes are always in that top 10, 15 of most competitive athletic programs, meaning, they might suck in basketball this year, but in football and girls field hockey, what I'm saying? I mean, in almost every sport, when you go across the board, the Buckeyes, are one of those that are up there. But are all these big teams, are the Clemsons and the Alabamas, and I'm sure I could look it up somewhere, are they spending $170 million, and are they making $17 million? A year. I mean, that's.
Well, let's see. Hold on, I can pull something up real quick.
And I think the Alabama coach, isn't he getting paid the most? Isn't he almost $9 or $10 million a year?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I think that's what he's getting paid.
Almost. So let's see. This is 2016, 2017 finances. Alabama spent 174. Or no, they made. Yeah, their total revenue was 174 million, while their operating costs.
What year is this?
2016, 2017.
Okay, so the year after the stat I have. Okay.
Yeah, and their operating costs were 158 million. So it's more than Ohio State.
Right. Well, a year later, maybe Ohio State spent that kind of money. I mean, it's hard to say. So, Mal Powell is saying Texas in 2016 had revenues of over 215 million.
He's
saying that's the number 1 in revenue. I mean, I was kind of just going by surplus, but the Buckeyes revenue was almost 170. I mean, it's definitely big time sports, right? I mean,
hundreds of millions of dollars to operate these college football programs, and they don't know how to pay the kids.
Well, we should talk about that. What does it cost to run the Dallas Cowboys? Because that boy just bought himself a boat. And I'm not even sure the word boat, other than it floats, is the right term, because it's longer than the football field that they play on. Did you see a picture of that boat? Have you seen that picture?
I saw the picture.
Whew.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
So that's my point. Is he spending $170 million a year?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now again, that's just one football team. This is the whole athletic program,
right?
Jordan Allen saying 11.5 a year is what Saban gets. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Urban Meyer last year was the highest paid employee of the government of Ohio, because that is a government job, I'm pretty sure. And if I'm not mistaken, he was getting around $7 million. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think he was the highest paid employee of the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So
that's wild.
Yeah. So again, that's why we talk a little bit of college. And we talked college for 15 minutes and didn't really talk about any real sports other than the one thing. Are you into college basketball a little bit? I think we've had that
a little bit.
Yeah, I struggle. Used to be into it more big time, and now I'm kind of. I am one of those fair weather, I watch when the tournament starts kind of people.
Pretty much. That's when I really start to pay attention.
Yeah. So it gets a little bit out there. Again, Lenny Melnick, fantasysports.com. Come out to the chat room. Jordan Allen, Mal Powell, they're both out there, trying to keep me honest. But if they've listened to me and they've seen me in the chat room enough, honesty or the truth is not necessarily what I bring to the table. Mm-hmm. I just bring shit I hear to this, to a show. I heard this. And, any good show is based on what you heard, not what's the truth or what a fact is.
Gotcha.
Isn't it much more fun talking about things you heard than things you know?
Oh, yeah. Insert some logic into it and see where we can run with it.
Right. All right. So now we'll turn to a little bit of logic where I have no expertise. And that's why Chris Allen is on the show. Where do you want to start with the coach carousel that really kicked off here the last day or two? And I'm going to start. I guess I'm lying. I'm not going to let you start. Let's start with our Bengals, who are still the one team that's not seemed to be doing anything. I just want to ask you quick, anything that you've heard? Have I missed anything? Are they waiting for somebody? Or is somebody waiting to see if they get a better option than the Bengals? Or are we going to get stuck with Hugh Jackson, which everyone in the chat room makes fun of me because they know I'm a Bengals fan?
Yeah.
No, don't say yes like we're going to get Hugh Jackson. And I'm not, and you know me, I'm a fan of him. I'm just not. I don't think that's a step down for us. Meaning, there's no way I'm firing Lewis to go with Hugh Jackson.
No.
I have no problem with Hugh Jackson being on the staff. I have no problem with him maybe coaching our team 4 years from now when he gets his shit together. But I'm not firing Marvin Lewis to hire Hugh Jackson. So what are we doing?
No.
What are our Bengals? What are my Bengals doing?
I haven't heard anything recently. If anything, it's more of a wait and see at this point. I'm hoping, and this is me putting on my tinfoil hat real quick, is that they've put out all these rumors saying that they've expanded their search. I mean, they wanted to bring in Arians. Of course, he already got scooped up by the Bucks. They wanted to bring in, was it Kingsbury, the dude from USC that got swooped up by the Cardinals. But most of these, hot coaches that were coming out, even Todd Monken, offensive coordinator for the Bucks, they wanted to bring in all these different coaches and whatnot. So it sounded like they were expanding their search much farther than what I had expected. But my fear is that they're going to let all these coaches get snapped up with contracts.
I know. And
then the only person that's going to be there will be like, well, we did everything we could. We interviewed all these guys. The only thing that's left is you. So
again, and people around Ohio or around here know that the Brown family, they're looking for more than what us as fans are looking for. Yep. They're looking for a controllable entity. They're looking for a financially stable entity. Winning. And I brought this up in the chat room today on something else. And the Bengals, to me, are definitely one of those. In baseball, it's pretty good. You hear these, team owners talk about how they can't make any money, but at the same time, the value of their teams are going up 400%. And I get it. Yes, the Bengals can say, "Well, we're the Brown family. We have to make a living, and we only pocketed $5 million last year because our team sucked." But what they're not telling you is we bought the team for $250,000 back in the '60s, and now it's worth $200. Even the Bengals, I bet, are probably a $200-300 million value just because of it being an NFL team.
That, and they're cutting corners on what they give to the players. Do you see that report from TJ Houshmandzadeh that came out? This was maybe 2 months ago, saying that they were giving them used cups in order to practice with when Houshmandzadeh was still here.
Right. I mean, it was a laughing stock the year that the Bengals were on the HBO show Hard Knocks, and the guys had to put in their own air conditioners. I mean, they got, and like I said, but the Browns will tell you, and the Reds have been that way for a few years where, but we just can't make any money. But again, but what they don't tell you is, they didn't, even if they broke, they didn't make a penny, meaning they broke dead even. Mm-hmm. They don't tell you that their team increased in value in 1 year by 20%. And when the team's already worth 200,000, 20% is a lot of money, so the value of, is still, still goes up. So it is a little bit.
And with the rising cap space year after year, it's not like they're really strapped for cash on a yearly basis. They're still operating, I think, well within the means in order for them to sign on better talent.
The Bengals make money.
Yeah, they're not strapped for cash.
Right. But they'll still whine and cry,
Oh, absolutely.
But Eric Bieniemy is the one name I still keep hearing. Is it Monken?
Yeah, Monken.
I've heard his name a few times. I don't know. I'm worried. I am worried.
I'm worried they're just going to sit on their thumbs and then wait for all the, solid coaches to be picked up. And then they're just going to be like, oh, well, it's just Hugh. That's the only person that's left.
All right.
The last chick at the bar type of excuse. And there we go.
Right. All right. Jets. I think that happened tonight. Adam Gase is going to the Jets. I don't know. Doesn't impress me any. As far as fantasy, I don't.
No, that's the worst.
Yeah, I know.
Jets fan.
No, I'm not. I don't think any better or worse than what they had. I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, for fantasy, I don't see a change here. It doesn't make me. I don't sit and jot keepers down now and go, oh man, now the Jets have a coach that I this is a keeper now for me. I mean, it does not change anything for me.
If Adam Gase had a problem with Kenyon Drake, if he had a problem with Kenny Stills, I mean, these are documented issues that he had with some of the players in his locker room. What do you think he's going to do with Robbie Anderson,
I agree,
who was busted for yelling at cops and whatnot not a year ago?
No, the only thing is he's going to be coaching in front of New York fans just the same. I think there's as many New York. Well, all these New York Jets fans retire and move to Florida anyway. So he's going to be coaching in front of New York fans the same as he was in Florida.
I feel bad for Jets fans. I really do.
I agree. The Bruce Arians hire for fantasy, to me, that's a different story. I think for fantasy, that immediately moves a couple people up and a couple people around, and maybe even has potential keepers now that maybe I'm not saying top keepers, but at least now people you got to go maybe now, maybe like a Winston. I think this makes Winston more valuable than he was 2 days ago. I mean, again, what his keeper value is, you'd still have to monitor that and feel it out a little bit. But, I'm just saying, I mean, he is a quarterback type coach. He's an offensive guy. This team has weapons. They have a little bit of a line. What do you think fantasy wise?
From Jameis's perspective, I think that, I think that at least the assumption going in was that Cutter was going to be gone. But if they retained Monken and made him the head coach, that would have been pretty much a lateral move, at least in terms of, lateral move in terms of Jameis's value. I wouldn't have looked at it any different. Bruce Arians, given his history with Carson Palmer and what he did for that offense when he was still with Arizona, and that was when John Brown, J.J. Nelson, Larry Fitz, when they were pretty much on a decent path to a playoff run, I think that it stabilizes Jameis's value. Right. And looking at some of the players that they still have, Mike Evans, who just came off of a 1,500-yard season. I don't know if Deshaun Jackson's going to be there. I think he's going to move on. Hopefully he winds up back in Philly next year. But Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries, the only player that I really do have concerns about is O.J. Howard. Well, both O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate, because at least traditionally, Bruce Arians and the tight end position really haven't mixed well. But I don't know if it's a usage perspective versus a personnel perspective. Because in Arizona, it was Jermaine Gresham for the most part. Yeah. Until this past year when Bruce Arians wasn't even there. So while there's concern, I still think all of the weapons that are there within Tampa Bay, I think they should be solid going forward. So I really don't have much of a. I'm definitely going to be drafting most of those guys at pretty much the same value. Maybe I might get a little bit aggressive on a couple of them, but for the most part, having Arians with them, I think should be a huge boost for that offense.
Right. Just real quick, Jordan Allen out there saying potential Bengals head coaches, Monken, Bieniemy, Zach Taylor, Chris Richard, Chris Peterson, and he just wants to know our thoughts. But then Malpal goes, the Bengals will only sign whoever they can get for the least amount. They don't necessarily won't spend the least amount of money. They'll spend a little more up to get a coach they can control and will stay, on their side, I guess is what I want to say. Yes, yeah. They're not gonna overpay, but they're not gonna pay they're not gonna go super cheap either, where the guy's gonna come out and open the can of soup and say, okay, boys, here's what you really want to know what the Bengals are like. Here's what I saw. Bengals have always held their cards, tight. And when they've had coaches that they thought were, they had a couple decent, Sam Weiss was a Bengals guy, he did great for the Bengals, but towards the end, they let him go a little early because I think he, when things were going south, he was, they were afraid he was going to be one of those coaches to say, because he was that kind of guy, he would come out and say, hey, this is why I'm leaving. It's this bad versus just, cutting ties of hair early for him. But I think I think it's important for the Bengals to get a person, and that's unfortunate. That's why I still think the Hugh Jackson thing is there. That
that's going to be.
I think that's a Mike Brown type guy. So
yeah, that's a Mike Brown guy. Him, Vance Joseph. I mean, those are like Mike Brown guys.
They're also mentioning McCoy. I've heard rumors now that McCoy's not even interested in coaching, at least for a year.
He should take the Bruce Arians path and take a year off and then come back and then see if he can adjust to the new game and come up with a better scheme. And I think he'll probably be. I mean, he has the experience that enough GMs and front offices will at least hear him out. And then if he can, at least present himself well in terms of what he would want to do with any team that'd be interested in interviewing him, I could see him getting picked up again.
Right. Malpal says he'd hire North Turner for a quick 1-year turnaround.
Heck yeah.
I don't know. Again, I don't think the Bengals a 1-year turnaround is what we need.
No, we need a long-term type of thing. And that's where I think both of the guys that Jordan was talking about, so Zach Taylor, so he's quarterback's coach for the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. And then Chris Richard, I think he's cornerback, the Seattle cornerbacks coach for Seattle. So I think Richard actually might be a fairly decent hire based off of, I think, what they've been able to do in terms of evaluating and also progressing the talent there within Seattle. Because I think this past year, after everything that happened with pretty much everybody within the Legion of Boom, they thought that Seattle defense was going to be terrible. But I think they've actually been able to pick up enough rookies and secure enough talent that their defense hasn't really been that bad.
Right. And kind of, this is the way I am right now. First of all, me, I am 100% a fan, and I know most of us fans don't know shit, and that most of our opinions are just that, and nothing matters. So my real opinion doesn't matter, and I could be wrong 100%. But I think personally, the Bengals' best option, based on what I know they want to do, which is a money thing and blah blah, is while everyone is taking these high profile offensive guys, because we're a copycat league and everybody wants, I would save my money and find me a good defensive guy, because in our conference, if you can keep teams from scoring, more than 20, 21 points every game, the Bengals have the talent to win with just an okay offensive, mind or a decent coordinator. So I'm kind of the other way. I'm like, I'd rather take a shot personally right now on a defensive guy, which Marvin was early on. Yeah. The Bengals had a hell of a defense for, out of his 15 years, the Bengals had an above average defense, and a few years a great defense.
Yeah, but I think Zimmer was, a huge part of that, and that's why for Minnesota that wound up working quite well for them.
Right. Zimmer's the one I was hoping this whole time. I was hoping Minnesota would part ways with him. I really thought Zimmer would be the thing we would, I would have loved to have that. So, it's back to, and I'll put that in a fantasy thing. If you're in a fantasy draft and you're drafting towards the bottom of round 1 and everybody's taking running backs, you know what? Take a top wide receiver and go run, or vice versa. If everyone's going wide receiver, take a top running back and flip flop.
I just did a mock draft last night where I was out of the 1.01 position. I took Gurley, but then the next 5 picks were running backs. And then the 7th overall was Mahomes. And I think the first wide receiver wasn't taken until 1.08. It was either 1.07 or 1.08 when the first wide receiver was taken.
Right. And that's my, zig versus zag, that type thing. I think with everyone taking all these offensive guys, and to be honest, a lot of them are taking more money, than just a defensive guy might get right now, because no one wants a defensive guy. Like I said, it's a copycat league.
Well, I think, and this is part of the argument, not really argument, but the comments I've seen floating around on Twitter, which I generally agree with, is that, head coaching hires, it's not just about what they can provide to the team. I think some front offices and some owners actually look at how much excitement, how much buzz that particular hire is going to bring to their team, how many extra butts they can get in seats.
Sure.
So that utility function that they use in order to figure out what their next coaching hire is going to be is not typically just based off how many wins, because they could wind up, hiring like this Cliff Kingsbury hire or Todd Monken whenever he gets picked up, or any of these like hot coaching hires right now. It generates excitement, but if it doesn't wind up working out, they can just wind up getting rid of him after 1 year. But but people will still wind up coming to the games because like, oh, we've got this new hot head coach, so we're excited. We're going to come watch our team play. Right now,
and again in the chat room, they're saying, well, the NFL is going offensive, and blah blah blah, but. I mean, just this week, and people might argue with me, you had the Chargers and the Ravens. I don't care what anybody says. Both of those are well above average defenses. You have the Eagles that had the Bears, above average defenses. Sure. The Colts have had a surprisingly good defense.
Yes.
You have the Cowboys that, yes, they got Cooper and their offense started scoring, but their defense got much better. The Rams, again, score a lot of points. That defense is tight. Yeah. So people can sit there and tell me that it's an offensive league, but look at the teams that played this, last week. All of them, except for the, and coming up this week, the Chiefs and the Saints are the two that are a little questionable. The Chiefs have no defense, but they score 48 points. And the Saints are kind of that same boat. Their defense comes and goes. Patriots, they can turn that defense on and off periodically. So I get what people say, and I know fans like to think it's an offensive game, and I love watching, games are that way. I enjoyed the Eagles-Bears game. I hate both teams, but I enjoyed that defensive game. The Chargers, they shut the Ravens down, for 3.5 quarters. And what people don't remember, maybe they don't, you see the 23 points, but you got to realize the Ravens gave up like 4 field goals to start the game. I mean, their defense was playing tough. To say, I still believe that defense can get you to a Super Bowl, because if you can keep a team from scoring 21, most above, and I think most average offenses can score 21 points, meaning if you're, so I don't buy it as much as other fans want to say that it's 100% offensive league. There's a lot of teams scoring points, but I still think a good defensive coach can turn a team around. I feel maybe a little quicker. Same thing. And maybe it's because of the way we look at it. It seems like there's more misses in the college draft on offensive players than there is defensive players. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so that's the same thing. You get a good defensive coach and he knows talent and he grabs a couple good defensive guys. And like I said, next thing you know, you only have to score 21 because your defense is going to keep them from scoring more than 20. And maybe it's my old school. Yeah, you need to be able to score. And Jordan, I understand that. I do realize that. I'm saying you got to score 21, but if you can keep the other team from scoring, again, I just named the most of the top better defenses are in the playoffs, and that's why I would not bet my house on Kansas City, winning the Super Bowl. Their defense is the scariest of all the teams left.
Yeah, I think there's actually money coming in on the Colts actually pulling off the upset this weekend, which I can totally see that happen.
Their defense has turned it on. And I know it was a big deal today. Would you rather have Mahomes or Luck in this game? And a lot of the experts are saying Luck, because Luck's been there. What if I'm not mistaken, there's 4 first-time playoff quarterbacks in the playoffs this year, and 3 are already gone.
Right.
Mahomes is the only one left. Yep. So, we can make fun and say all we want, but a first-time playoff is a lot of pressure for a young quarterback. I mean, and maybe he's the guy to do it. I mean, I don't know. Hell, Nick Foles is a playoff genius. So,
if Nick Foles winds up getting to another Super Bowl and winning, I mean, he's going into the
Hall of Fame for sure.
Just for those 2 Super Bowl wins. He doesn't have to do anything else.
Right. I think definitely if he gets them to the Super Bowl, he's their starter next year. I really am believing that now. There's a lot of rumors going around about the Eagles moving on from Wentz. I don't really buy into it right now just based off contract situation, but I agree. It would be harder, but I think if Foles gets them to the Super Bowl, it would be hard to, I mean,
it's at least it would behoove the Eagles to at least find out what the going price for Wentz would be. Right. Like if a team comes a calling and if they're offering, multiple picks, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm wearing my Colts shirt. I'm a believer. I mean, the Colts is my team moving forward. 55 minutes already. I don't think, Andrea, I'm asking, I double checked. I didn't see, I don't think you and Lou have a show tonight at 11. But if there's a show at 11, 11, you might let me know, and we'll make sure we get off here in a few minutes. But I looked real quick. I thought I heard, didn't the Browns hire somebody today, or did I miss that, or it just hasn't signed yet?
Kitchens. Baker get the kitchen.
Okay. So that's a done deal now.
Yep.
So they did, that's a contract. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I doesn't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
That team has a lot of offensive players. What's this do for fantasy and the Cleveland Browns players?
It keeps the continuity of that offense, I think, moving in the right direction. I mean, we saw what was happening with the team as soon as Kitchens took over. And I think that at least from next year, assuming I think what they really need is a couple more wide receivers to really fill out that wide receiver core. But overall, I think they can move into next season. I think really take over the AFC North.
Okay. Are the Ravens going to do anything, or is that Harbaugh's kind of in? I kind of hear now.
Yeah, they're working towards a contract extension for Harbaugh. Lamar Jackson is going to be their starter. Joe Flacco, they're looking to move him during the offseason. So
a lot of people were saying that they should have played Flacco. I believe they did the right thing. You can't go into that game without committing to a quarterback, and I think they did the right thing. I think Harbaugh did the right thing by not putting Flacco in, and they still came back. And even the people who said they should have played him, they might have still won. No, Jackson did score, 17 or whatever points, in 5 minutes or whatever.
No, so, the Chargers, give credit to, who is it? Gus Daniels. Yeah, Daniels for the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. Coming out with, I think they wound up playing, it was like 7 cornerbacks on defense for the Chargers. Giving him almost no room, or allowing for none of the wide receivers to get any sort of separation, really limiting what Lamar Jackson could do. And then being able to also limit his rushing style by placing either Bosa or Ingram over top of their weakest offensive lineman for the Ravens in order to limit his rushing as well. It was just a really well thought out and executed defensive game plan for the Chargers, and it really showed. They knew how to attack that offense.
Is Bosa's brother going to be the number 1 draft pick?
Top 5.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with a couple of dynasty guys a couple weeks ago, and if he's not number 1, he'll be top 5 most likely.
Right. Again, I believe that too. I just know a few people showing that, if not, that a few people are saying even if he doesn't go number 1, he's still probably the best player.
Yeah.
And probably the least likely to produce. You know what I'm saying? Meaning if you're a team that needs defensive help, maybe even a team that doesn't need defensive help, if you want a guaranteed player, to me, it's like in fantasy. When I pick I like to get a first round pick, even if some people say I overvalued or I reached a little bit. I like getting someone in my first round pick that's going to at least pay off. Doesn't need to win me games, doesn't need to win me the league, but I just need to go, hey, you know what? He did okay. I'm fine with that. It's those busts that kill you.
Yeah, because I think even when Joey came out, he wasn't like an immediate impact. He was still injured.
He got hurt right away. Right. He got hurt right away.
Didn't sign he held out for a few weeks.
I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the first game back from being healthy, he didn't even start. He held out. Yeah. And then the first game he played, I think he had 2.5 or 3 sacks. Then he got hurt again. But he did have an impact in the very first game he played.
Yeah, it just took him a while to play that first game.
Right, 8 weeks or whatever he did. I think it was a while, but I'm still not a fan of what Bosa did for the Buckeyes this year. I don't know. Come on, you made a commitment. I get it, but I don't.
Right.
But I am, and we talked about this last night. I am a believer. If they'd have been in a bowl game this year, let's say he plays, and then this year they're in a bowl game that doesn't matter. Even though it's the Rose Bowl, I just said, hey, don't play in that. You know, that game doesn't matter now, you know, because that was the argument we had last night on the roundtable. You know, there's only 3 bowl games that matter. The 2 semifinals and the finals. All the other games are practice games. You know, I'm sorry. Right. They don't mean anything. You know, you can't even, I don't even think you can use them for fantasy judgment, meaning, you know, because they were playing, you know, Purdue got their butt kicked, but I know 2 of their linemen didn't even play. You know, I mean, you know, so, you know, you just can't judge on that kind of stuff in these bowl games that don't matter much anymore. So, any other head coach? I thought there was. Did the Bears? What are the Bears? I thought I heard rumors. The Bears are fine. They're not changing their guys since they lost.
No, but they're. I think.
Or is it maybe an OC job? Is there a coordinator job? Is there? I thought I heard something today going on with the Bears, either defensively or offensively.
Yeah, Vic Fangio. He's going to Denver.
Okay, that's what. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So they're going to need to hire a coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Nagy will be fine. It's just that their defensive coordinator, he's going to.
I got you. All right. Then what teams are left? Who doesn't have a coach beside the Bengals? Well, unfortunately, guys, I'm from Cincinnati. That's been the only one I've cared about. Do we have what other teams? Huh?
That's it.
The Bengals are the only one that haven't signed or committed or done anything. And I think
because the Packers are supposed to. They're getting Matt LaFleur from the Titans. So that was the other one that got picked up, which is another guy that was under, goodness gracious, I can't even remember. Sean McVay. He was under him for a year. And so now he's going to be the head coach for the Packers. So they're out. Kevin Stefanski, Kevin Stefanski, the interim offensive coordinator for the Vikings.
Malpal's saying the Dolphins haven't hired anyone yet.
Yeah, so now with Gase gone, that's a good point. Yeah, with Gase gone.
All right. Thanks, Malpal.
Yeah.
Right. Gates is gone. So, you know, that, so you have the Dolphins. You have 2 great programs, the Dolphins and the Bengals.
I would argue that the Dolphins are much worse. At least
you mean the situation they're in now?
The situation that they're in is much worse
because of their players,
their players, and also from a contract perspective. Because what are you supposed to do with Kenny Stills?
Yeah,
his contract. What are you supposed to do with Devontae Parker? Because I think they were trying to move him actually this past season, but they couldn't find any takers.
Right.
I mean, Frank Gore. I'm assuming there was rumblings about him trying to come back. What are you supposed to do with these parts and pieces of this team?
Right.
And their defense, they have a couple of decent players on their defense, but it's just, I mean, they need to almost tear it all down.
Right. And then Malpal said these bowl games are, only there for the degenerate gamblers. And I've heard that word a lot lately. Is there a degenerate gambler, or are you either a good gambler, so you're a gambler, and everyone just is a bad gambler?
I think it's just a
most people that call themselves a degenerate gambler, I immediately go, okay, you're a losing. You gamble, you lose at gambling, because everyone else say, oh, I gamble for a living, or I'm a gambler. A degenerate gambler, to me, if you're good, to me, you can't be a degenerate, because if you're good enough to bet on 100 games on a weekend or whatever you want, then you're good. But
I would always taken degen to be like, you're a volume better. You just bet all the time. You winning or losing.
So being a degenerate doesn't mean you're good or bad. It just means you bet a lot.
Yeah, like I'll bet on anything. I mean, I might win, I might lose, but I thought degen always just meant
So degenerate, you can be a damn good gambler, but you could still be a degenerate gambler.
Heck yeah.
All right. Okay, then maybe I'm a degenerate drinker. I'll try that out here and there.
I'm trying to stop being that.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
You got anything brewing? You got anything brewing right now?
Yeah, I got some stuff sitting in a bucket about 4 feet that way.
4 feet that way?
Yeah.
It's a bubble and brew?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
What do we got? Stout, porter, IPA? What do we got going down?
Yeah, it's a stout.
A stout?
Another Reese's peanut butter stout.
Oh, Reese's peanut butter. Hey, now, Reese's peanut butter puffs made our top 10 cereal last night. I think that was Lou that threw that out there.
Okay.
Which I personally think that's just a knockoff of peanut butter Captain Crunch with a few chocolate things thrown in to make it Reese's cup. But I'm just saying, I'm not sure how you can't put the original on the list and then you put some knockoff. But
yeah,
again, I'm just saying it was a little tough. Real quick, we're already over an hour and we really talked about nothing. And that's what makes this fun. Chat room's been pretty active tonight. Obviously, casinos have 30-story towers for a reason. And that's degenerate gamblers. I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but that being said, you know me, I'm a poker guy, and probably sports betting would be my next gambling issue. And to me, those are at least the two things that I have the ability to study and keep the odds a little bit in my favor.
All right.
Those 30-story buildings were made with machines that you have no study or capability. The slot machines, the table games. I'm not sure sports books and poker rooms built those tall buildings.
Probably not. I mean, yeah, you need more of the ones where the house is winning a bit more often.
Right. Right. So that would be my thought. What's the main game? What game can you not wait for this weekend? Let's talk about what we have coming up.
Yeah, it has to be the Indy KC game because I just don't know. I mean, I really don't have a good feel for who's going to win any of them.
I think it's setting up to be a great weekend.
Oh, yes. I mean, much better than this past weekend. I mean, based off of Vegas totals so far, I mean, we've got a few games, at least two of the games with the point totals over 50. I mean, just the names of some of the players, and we've got Sean McVay and the rest, and the Rams finally playing, the Saints playing. I mean, so many of these just high-powered offenses that we were so happy to roster in both DFS and season long, all during the regular season. Now, and the Patriots, of course, but now we actually get to watch them play in the playoffs when it really matters. So,
right,
I think all of these games sound great.
So I kind of agree with you, but when you look at it, it just could go anyway, and all the games are interesting to me. Obviously, the Bengals, our division, has nobody in there, so I can't root for Pittsburgh or Baltimore or any of those teams. But I guess let's go this a different way because I haven't heard anyone talk about this today on all the shows. What do you want to see next week? Not what's the best matchup this week. If things could fall the way you want, what 4 teams do you want to go next week?
So the conference teams that will actually play to go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I mean, which obviously the choices are. Would you rather see the Colts and the Patriots, the Chargers and the Chiefs? I mean,
yes, I want to see Colts Patriots because I want to see Deflategate Part 2. That's what I want to see. I would love to see that happen because remember they were the ones that snitched on the Patriots.
Would we have a ref cam? Would there be a pre-game ref cam where there's I'm sorry, I don't know who is there a brand name of a ball pump that would sponsor the camera? I don't know. But, come on, there's got to be a name we can come up with pretty quick. I mean, Voight has a pump. I mean, the Voight, football pump cam. I would tune in early.
Oh yes, you know that the entire. I mean, pretty much after Saturday. No, they play on Sunday, right? When do the Chiefs in Indianapolis play?
That's the Saturday game. That's the first game. The first game.
Right. So assuming that New England also make it past LA,
which is the early Sunday game.
That's the early Sunday game. So assuming it winds up being Colts New England, the second that game is decided, the media is going to be filled with Deflategate narratives from then until the game is actually played. That's all it's going to get talked about.
That would be okay. I would sign up for that. That interests me.
Yes, I think that would be fun.
Right.
At least just from a chaos view.
So, obviously then you could also have Chiefs or Patriots. You could have the Chargers Chiefs, but I think they've already played each other like 9 times this year.
Well, yeah, that's interdivision.
So I agree. And then on the other side, I don't know. I definitely do not want to see the Cowboys and the Eagles. That would not interest me. I think Rams Saints would be the combination there that I think could be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, we already had that game. They played each other already.
I know, and that was like the 48 point or 182 points or something.
So Rams Chiefs, but still, that was a heck of a
Rams Saints. I think that would be the game I'd want to see on that side.
Yeah.
But that being said, I kind of want the Cowboys to beat the Rams, and I hate the Cowboys.
I don't want to see my problem with, and this is where me being a younger guy. I mean, I'm rooting for the young guy because the narrative that I've been hearing for the past couple of days is that with all of these younger hires, the essence of football is kind of in doubt. These guys that are that don't want to run the ball on first and second down.
The essence of football.
You can only win football games by running it like 20 plus times. I mean, all of these narratives.
At the end of the car wash, when the guy comes and says, "Do you want a scent thing for your dash?" Can I say yes? I'll have an essence of football, please.
Yes, take an essence of football, but just keep it in your car.
People would sit in my car. People would sit down in my car and go, "Oh, that smells better than new car smell. What is it?" And I say, "That is essence of football."
Essence of football. I mean, all of these.
Chris, we've been doing this a year, and I think that's the first time we've ever brought up the essence of football. People, this show is high class. This show is high class. If we weren't on video, people would think we're very high class people, Chris.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? No. The essence of football. Yeah. I kind of see what you're saying, but there's just something about, to me, when I don't care about the two teams, I root for the upset.
Oh, I need the young guys to win. I need Sean McVay to win. So all of these curmudgeons that are saying that you have to run the football 30 times a game to win can be quiet.
Curmudgeon.
Like, I need it to stop.
Curmudgeon. I have not heard curmudgeon in quite a while.
I mean, these people that just they want to play these 1960s style football, or that come up with these correlations like, when Ezekiel Elliott gets 20 plus carries a game, they're 12-2, and it's
and I've noticed this just recently in the playoffs, where these head coaches are now going back and sit on the bench with the players for a minute. And okay, I'm sure it's the other way around, where the cameras see it and they go on them. But I think the coaches have something in their ear where they're going, "Hey, the camera's getting ready to come. Get over there and sit down." So the essence of football makes it look like the curmudgeon gives a shit. Come on. Vince Lombardi never went over and sat down with Bart Starr and said, "Hey, what's your opinion here?" And maybe we tried that. No, he stood at the line. He watched the defense play. And then when the defense was done, he looked at Bart Starr and said, "Get your ass out there and do what I say."
Exactly.
So, there was no essence of football. He was just a curmudgeon.
I need to stop. I need full-on analytics nerd football to prevail this weekend.
So you'll have something to write. Right.
Exactly.
All right.
I need the nerds to win this weekend.
And yes, out the chat room, baseball news went down, so that will turn our chat room quickly into a baseball frenzy. Grandal signs with the Brewers, so the Brewers have a catcher, which I don't know. I didn't pay a lot of attention. I didn't think they needed a catcher. They had two decent young guys from last year, but I did pick up Grandal in my first Major League Baseball two-catcher league. I got him a little bit late. I think he was my third catcher. I thought, well, he'd pick up. So I now like that. That I have Grandal on my two-catcher league, and I drafted him without him signing yet. And I think the Brewers is a good thing. It's a pretty offensive team and a good offensive spot for him. So I'll accept that. So thanks for the news out there. I think it was Malpal that put that in there, and Andrea and Lou were talking about it. So again, we'll in this chat room, you will lose. The sparkly glitter in that chat room is anything baseball. We could have our best show ever, Chris.
Talking second baseball,
talking everything. But yes, as soon as there's some flaky, some flaky little baseball news. Some curmudgeon team signed the best bat boy ever, and we would lose this chat room. So,
oh my goodness,
yeah. you know, but I love them all. You know, they support me, so that's a good thing. You know, I'm kind of stumped at the thought. Are you guys? But why? Oh, curmudgeon. Right. She's curmudgeon in a question mark. I agree. Curmudgeon seems like something that I'm trying to think.
I got people shook with this curmudgeon thing.
Right. I have heard the term before. Curmudgeon to me is the guy in the one Christmas show where no toys. Santa's not allowed to bring toys anymore. You know, that guy's the curmudgeon, you know. Oh my God. You didn't go dictionary on our chat room.
Oh, heck yeah, I did.
Oh my God.
I bring culture.
We will never be allowed on again because culture is not what I bring to the table. And now you're throwing culture on my show. That we have a dictionary. Bad-tempered person, especially an old one.
Boom.
All right. I've got a shot at getting there. I've got curmudgeon skills brewing in me. I just have to keep working at it. So, Chris, anything else that that we want to talk about? We have really everyone in the chat room, everybody at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. If you're still with us, thank you. You know, that means you really had nothing to do tonight. Anybody who downloads this, our 46 download listeners, you know, enjoy the word curmudgeon this week.
Yes.
And you know, and essence. And not just essence. I mean, the word essence I get. The essence of football. I'm just saying that sounds like I said, a freshener I would hang from my mirror. So, you know, I'm going with that. Chris, where can the people out there find you if they want to tweet you about curmudgeoning?
If you want to tweet me about finding the essence of being a curmudgeon, right. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX. I've taken a step back over the past couple of weeks.
Good.
Yeah.
Concentrate 100% on this program.
Oh yes, more than I need to. But yeah, I want to take a break for a little bit, and
right.
You know, and maybe take a step back for a little bit, and then I'll start writing here within the next couple of weeks and start digging back into it. But now I just want to watch some good football.
Yeah, me too. And we talked last week. I decided I opted out. I'm in no playoff leagues. I wanted to, again, the fantasy thing I was done with. I wanted to just watch football, and I did. You know, college is over now. We're good to go. A few games, and then it's, you know, NCAA basketball start here, and baseball, like I said, baseball's going. So I'm just at a fantasy fan, not too complicated. You can find me pretty much every day, 7 days a week at different times in the chat room at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. You know, join us there, sign up. It's quick, it's easy. I know Lenny was off this morning, so Lou did the baseball show, but I think he's going to be back tomorrow morning. So we should be good there. I know there's multiple shows, and I should write it down and know. But JJ works. He's one of my heroes at 2:00 every day. He talks all kinds. He's a Michigan guy, and I have been giving him quite a bit of a lot of crap in the chat room about Michigan football here lately. You know, he can take it. But very good show. If you have time to tune in live or click on podcast and download it. JJ Works, WERK. I listen to JJ work while I'm at work. And, you know, he talks all kinds of, you know, college basketball, college football, you know, NFL. He talks it all. Very good hour of sports news in the middle of the afternoon. So everybody come out and join us. I'd assume based on this, because me and you definitely don't talk during the week. So the odds of us getting mad at each other between now and our anniversary show, you know,
which is good.
We might just make it. We might make it a full year, Chris. Like I said, January 18th last year was our first rendezvous. And it's taken us a whole year for me to find out that you're full of essence and that I'm a curmudgeon. Everybody, thanks again for coming out. Everyone in the chat room, we will talk to you later. Chris, say goodnight.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan Podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say goodnight. Good night.